So just yesterday, Sony had released the revamped PlayStation Plus service in Asian regions, and this is something that North America will be getting sometime in June. But the classic library of games that feature PlayStation 1 and PSP games were also bundled with the Asian region rollout. But unfortunately, Sony has seemingly not learnt from its previous mistakes, and many of the classic games that are on the service that run on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, unfortunately, are the slower 50 hertz PAL region games. So this all started yesterday on Twitter when a particular user that was trialing out Ape Escape on the Asian region service noticed that it was running a little slower than normal.
Playing each of these versions, this version feels much faster and smoother. This just feels disgusting, to be honest. This does not feel great at all.
And unfortunately, there has been confirmation since then that indeed the game is the Sony Computer Entertainment Europe version, as it's shown during its intro, as well as other people have done frame rate analysis with a direct feed capture, and it has been confirmed that it's running at 25 frames per second instead of 30, which means that it's running these slower PAL region versions. Now, VGC also followed up with this and confirmed that many of the classics in the lineup, including games like Everybody's Golf, Wild Arms, Jumping Flash, and Kurushi, also appear to be running European PAL versions of these games. Now, there are some games that are NTSC, including Tekken 2, but there's also reports that Tekken 2 is still running a little off as far as the emulation. Now, this is all second-hand, third-hand information. I've not seen this service yet, but this is something that I'll definitely be covering when it does come out, but this is not a good sign. And if we're getting reports of games that are running on PAL versions, as well as games that don't appear to be running at full frame rate or potentially using frame skip to, maintain a 60 FPS frame rate, then that certainly is not a good start for the service. There are many people out there that believe that PAL versions of these games are inferior because they run slower. Even things like having screen borders on the top and the bottom of the screen. But this is really just so puzzling to me as to why Sony would do this. Now, there was some people that had speculated that the reason why Sony has turned to the PAL region of these games is because it was the last printed physical game that was released off kind of the assembly line. But even that to me doesn't really hold much water, because most of these games were either developed in North America or Japan, where they are well and truly NTSC region countries. Now, there are games that were developed in Europe, and Sony has a big legacy over in England, of course. But for games such as Ape Escape and Wild Arms, these games really don't have any business running on PAL version. So I am very confused as to why Sony has done this, and it just seems like they've really learnt nothing from the backlash and criticism that they had received on the PlayStation Classic, which released maybe 3 years ago now. If you recall, when we covered the PlayStation 1 Classic, it was a pretty decent mini console system, but its fatal flaw was that the games were running in PAL mode. All the games were running in PAL mode. Now, there was hacks that you could do where you could basically just replace the entire list of games and pretty much put any PS1 game on there as well and have NTSC versions of those games. But it does really just seem very puzzling to me as to why Sony would continue to offer the exact same PAL versions of these first-party games where they really don't need to be. Now, it's interesting because at this juncture, we don't know if Sony is going to just roll out these PAL games kind of worldwide. We're only basing this information on what we know from the Asian rollout that has occurred. Again, this particular rollout is happening in June in North America, so it does remain to be seen whether there will be NTSC equivalents of these releases rolling out to North America, but I would probably expect that. I think PAL region is, I think that this particular rollout of games is going to be global. I'm not specifically thinking that there's going to be individual PAL and NTSC releases depending on the region. I do feel like that this is probably going to be PAL globally, where these games have already released in these particular countries, and that is quite unfortunate. Now, VGC also did confirm that Ape Escape, Everybody's Golf, Wild Arms, and Karushi were indeed PAL versions, and it's just very, very frustrating. You know, we really kind of felt like that Sony were going to offer us something that was a step up from what they've given us in the past. And it just continues on that narrative, that discussion, that Sony doesn't seem to be that interested in its legacy anymore. Even though, yes, we're getting these pretty cool games that are coming back, games like Ape Escape, that is very, very welcome on a service like this. It does just put a dampener on the whole thing when you're getting a substandard version of the game running at 50 hertz with, you know, that particular frame rate drops. And the game itself was never meant to run at 50 hertz, and it really is a unfortunate thing that we've seen. And again, most of these games were developed with 60 hertz, so that difference between PAL and NTSC is quite staggering. And look, at the end of the day, it just really makes this rollout seem a lot less exciting than potentially what it is. But I am going to leave it here for this episode because, look, this is all information that we've just learned yesterday about the service. There is a lot more to come with the PlayStation Plus Classics, PlayStation 1 games running on this service. And again, once this particular service rolls out in North America, I will be taking a very close look at the emulation. And I have heard stories about the emulation potentially being a little subpar, but I am going to hold my final thoughts and opinions until I get my hands on the service itself and really just put it through its paces and do some, you know, frame rate analysis and some comparisons with popular emulators as well. And we may even throw the PlayStation Classic in there as well to see how it, you know, fares against that. But this is pretty unfortunate for fans of the PlayStation 1 games on the PS Plus premium tier. And I do wonder, does this change your mind at all? I know there's some people out there on Twitter that have already been pretty disappointed with this news. I'm certainly disappointed because at the end of the day, I'm certainly looking for a good PlayStation 1 experience, and it just doesn't seem like that this service, at least at this juncture, delivers that. But we will wait and see when this service does roll out in North America, and I will definitely be covering it on the channel once it goes live. But for now, guys, we are going to leave it here for this episode. Let me know what you thought about this episode in the comments below. What are your thoughts about the unfortunate news that some of the games are running PAL region versions on this PlayStation Classic? And yeah, I don't really know what else to say. We're just going to leave it here. Thank you so much. If you liked it, don't forget to put a like on it, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye for now.